The wild doesn't care if you live or die. Out there, survival involves a lot more than just fire and shelter. A survivor has to get food before something else does. And that means traps. Mountain men knew this. With nothing but instinct and basic tools, they built deadly contraptions to snare whatever they could. Rabbits, beavers, birds, even predators if needed. This was the difference between eating and starving. In a survival situation, a good trap works while you focus on staying alive. It hunts for you. The right one will catch you dinner, and it'll keep you breathing. In this episode, we're showing you 10 deadly survival traps ever used in the wilderness. My name is Sam, and this is Wild America. Let's begin. Trap number 1, peg snare. This trap is pure survival. No fancy tools, just instinct and a few sticks. It's been used for centuries and for good reason. It works. The peg snare takes down small game fast, relying on tension, a hair trigger release, and a noose that snaps shut in an instant. To apply this trap, first, you'll need to find the right spot. Animal trails, feeding grounds, wherever they move, that's where you set up. Then, drive a secure peg into the ground. This is your anchor. If the soil's loose, pick a bush or sapling with strong roots to keep it locked in place. Now, carve a second peg. This one's the trigger. Cut a matching hook near the top so it locks with the anchor peg. The trap's life depends on this connection. It has to hold just long enough to spring at the right moment. Next, tie a snare line to the end of a bent spring pole, something flexible but strong. The trigger peg gets tied into this line with the knot lined up just right so it releases cleanly. Set the noose either over the baited trigger or directly in the animal's path. When the target takes the bait or steps into the noose, the trigger peg pops free. The spring pole snaps up, pulling the snare tight. In seconds, the catch is hoisted off the ground, kicking for breath if it's even alive long enough to fight. The beauty of the peg snare is its simplicity. And if you haven't got any bait, then don't worry at all. The right placement can still snag an animal as it brushes through. But like any good trap, practice makes perfect. A poorly set snare won't catch anything but frustration. Done right though, it's deadly. Just remember, there's no mercy in the wild, and the next trap ensures that fact is well understood. Trap number 2, motion-triggered snare. No bait, no hesitation, just basic, unforgiving mechanics. The motion-triggered snare doesn't wait for an animal to take the bait, but rather it reacts the moment something steps wrong. One misstep, and the noose snaps tight, lifting its victim into the air. Here's how it works. A young, flexible sapling acts as the engine. It should be bent, held under tension, and ready to spring. The right tree matters. Too stiff, and it won't have the speed. Too weak, and it won't have the strength. Next comes the forked stake, hammered deep into the earth beside a well-worn game trail. This holds the trigger in place, keeping everything on a hair trigger balance. The toggle is the trap's nervous system. A thin, horizontal stick connects the snare line to the trigger. It holds the tension until something bumps the trigger stick, and that's all it takes. If a rabbit, a fox, or even a careless bird brushes past, and the toggle slips free. The sapling snaps upright, jerking the snare line tight. If set right, the animal won't even touch the ground before it's trapped. This design has one big edge. It never runs out of bait. You set it, walk away, and let nature take its course. Anything using that trail is at risk. Set up a handful, and you've got an unseen trap of death working while you handle other survival needs. But it's not foolproof. A poorly placed snare loop won't catch anything. If the toggle snags or the stake moves, the trap misfires. A good trapper double-checks tension, positioning, and clearance before walking off. A bad one wonders why they're still hungry. However, the hunt doesn't end with one trap. There's always another waiting. Let's move to the next. Trap number 3, Greasy string deadfall. Here's another simple trap. It's quick to build and lethal if done right. The greasy string deadfall works because animals are predictable. They follow their noses, and they chew what smells like food, and so this trap exploits that weakness with a bit of bait, a thin cord, and a well-placed deadfall. Here's how it works. First, you take a forked stick, one leg longer than the other, and a length of twine, jute, or natural fiber. Then you smear the bait with grease, fat, or mashed berries deep into the twine so it soaks in. Afterward, you secure one end of the string to something solid, a root, a stake, a sapling. As for the other end, you tie it to the shorter fork of the stick. Now balance a heavy rock or log over the setup, just waiting to drop. The moment a hungry rodent or small critter chews through the baited string, the support gives way, the weight crashes down, instant kill. And the beauty of this trap? It's fast to set up and needs almost nothing, just a rock, a stick, and some string. It's perfect for survival when time and resources are scarce. And since the bait is constructed into the trap itself, animals keep working at it until they trigger their own end. Set it up right, and the greasy string deadfall will kill efficiently, with the animal right where you left it. Now let's look at another way to stack the odds in your favor. Trap number 4, fixed snare. This one's fast, simple, and deadly as well. The fixed snare is a survivalist go-to when time is short and supplies are scarce. A loop of wire, a well-placed setup, and patience. That's all it takes to turn a quiet trail into a death trap for small game. Rabbits, squirrels, and anything else that follows a worn path don't stand a chance. Making one is straightforward. You need strong wire. Braided steel cable works best. Take a small twig, about the thickness of a pencil, and wrap one end of the wire around it 2 or 3 times. Then twist the twig like a propeller until the wire tightens. Snap the twig and pull it free. What's left is a noose, tight, smooth, and ready to catch. Now, placement is everything. Set the snare over a burrow entrance or along a game trail, somewhere animals pass through naturally. Secure it at the right height so when a critter moves through, the loop catches around its neck. Struggle seals its fate. Tie the snare to a strong branch or anchor it with a spring pole for extra force. Either way, the result is the same. This trap works fast and takes almost no effort to reset, unless the wire bends. Once it kinks, it's useless. That's why you don't rely on just one. Set multiple, increase your odds. In a survival situation, more snares mean more food. And in the wild, you can't afford to go hungry. And the deeper you go into the wilderness, the smarter the traps must be. Let's see what's next. Trap number 5, pine pitch bird cup trap. Now, when food is scarce, a hunter makes do. The pine pitch bird cup trap is as simple as it is cruel. No ropes, no moving parts, just sticky sap and a bit of patience. It starts with a cone. Birch bark works best, but in a pinch, any cup-shaped container will do. What you do is you'll smear the inside with pine pitch, thick and sticky like tar. Then drop a few seeds inside and scatter more around. Then wait. When a bird lands, it'll peck at the loose seeds, then leans in for the jackpot. The second its feathers brush that resin, it's done. Stuck, wings useless. It flails, but the more it fights, the worse it gets. Indigenous hunters knew this trick well. Today, survivalists swap bark for plastic or paper cups. The method stays the same. Bait, trap, capture. No chase, no wasted energy, just one more meal secured in the wild. Speaking of survival, don't forget to check out our 7-hour deep dive on the lost art of wilderness survival. These are hardcore lessons straight from the mountain men. And if you're short on time, then check out our new quick episode on 7 forgotten survival skills that kept frontiersmen alive when the wild showed no mercy. There's plenty to learn, so if you plan to survive, don't miss it. You see, sometimes the best weapon is tension released in an instant. This takes us to trap number 6, the bait stick snare. Now, this snare works because it tricks the target into springing its own death, and here's how it's done. You simply need a flexible sapling for a spring pole, a durable forked stake, a small toggle stick, a snare line, and bait. First, you tie the snare line to the spring pole's end and bend it down until it touches the ground. Mark that spot. That's where you drive the forked stake deep into the earth. Next, attach a trigger line to the snare and tie the toggle stick to its end. Slide the toggle under the forked stake, keeping it level. This holds everything in place. Finally, place your bait stick at the far end of the toggle. That's the trigger. Set it. Test it. When an animal tugs the bait, the toggle snaps free, the pole whips up, and the snare tightens fast. If done right, there's no escape. One mistake, though. If the noose doesn't sit right, the prey slips free. Always check the tension. A perfect set means a quick catch. A bad one means wasted time, and out here, that could cost you your life. And the next trap is all about placement, patience, and precision. Trap number 7, Treadle Snare. This is indeed a deadly foot trap, built for the wild. The treadle snare doesn't rely on bait. It uses the animal's own instincts against it. Simple, effective, and brutal. First, you ought to find an active game trail, a path animals already trust. That's where this trap works best. Once you do, you dig a shallow hole right in the trail. Then, you drive 2 forked sticks into the ground on the same side of the hole with the forks pointing down. Now, grab 2 straight sticks and lay them across the forks, forming a loose frame. Over this, place several smaller sticks, barely supported by the frame, covering the hole. Any animal stepping through has no choice but to step on the sticks. And now, the kill mechanism. Take a sapling, a strong, flexible one, and bend it down. This is your spring pole, the trap's raw power. Tie one end of a snare line to the tip of the pole, forming a noose. The other end connects to a small trigger stick, just a few inches long. Wedge this trigger stick behind the horizontal frame so that it holds under just enough pressure. When an animal steps on the false ground, the bottom horizontal stick shifts, releasing the trigger. The spring pole snaps up like a whip, tugging the noose tight around the animal's leg. In a blink, it's trapped, held fast, struggling, but going nowhere. The treadle snare is pure survival logic. No bait, no wasted effort. Just a deadly, well-placed snare, waiting for an animal to make one wrong step. Survival always favors the prepared. You do well to remember that. And the next trap proves just how ruthless preparation can be. Trap number 8, Toggle Deadfall. This is simple as it is reliable and deadly at the same time. The Toggle Deadfall is a killer built on balance and gravity, a trap that turns a chunk of wood into a crushing weapon. This too requires no bait, no fuss, just basic mechanics and animal instinct doing the work for you. First, you need a log. Heavy enough to kill, but not so big it's impossible to set. You also need a length of cord, a pencil-thick toggle stick, a trigger stick, and a solid support. That's it. Nothing fancy. The log is your hammer. The toggle is your switch. The trigger is what makes it all come down. Set it up where animals already move. Game trails, underbrush runs, anywhere a hungry creature passes through. Tie one end of the cord to the log, the other to the toggle. Cover the toggle over a branch or a stake, letting it hold the weight. Now wedge the trigger stick in place, keeping the system barely balanced. The whole thing should sit on a hair trigger. If a rabbit, a rat, or anything with fur and bad luck brushes against it, snap. The toggle flips, the log drops, and the animal is done. Once again, the beauty of this trap is that you don't need to scrounge for food scraps or scent lures. Just place it where animals already travel, set it right, and let nature do the rest. But like every other trap we've talked about, precision matters. If it's too tight, it won't trigger. If it's too loose, it might collapse before it catches anything. Get the balance just right, and it's a silent, lethal way to turn wood and cord into survival. Now the next trap takes a different approach to survival. Trap number 9, Paiute Deadfall. Here's another trap that's deadly in its simplicity. The Paiute people crafted it for small game, and it still works today. Just like the toggle deadfall trap and the peg snare, you don't need any fancy tools here either. Just sticks, string, and a heavy rock. First, you need the right materials: a sturdy Y-shaped stick, a straight stick slightly thicker than a pencil, a thin bait stick about a foot long, a small toggle stick, some strong cordage, and a 5 to 10 pound rock. That's it. Now the setup is also simple. First, you tie one end of the string to the longer stick. This is the lever. Then, you tie the other end to the small toggle stick. Once that's done, you smear or skewer bait onto the tip of the long bait stick. You want it solid, something an animal will tug at. Then, find a good spot. The Y-shaped stick or post goes upright. The lever's free end rests in its fork with just a bit sticking out. Balance the rock carefully on the tip. Wrap the toggle halfway around the post, making a tight 180-degree turn. If the rock stays up with the toggle held, you've done it right. The last step is also simple. You wedge the bait stick under the rock and against the toggle. One touch and the whole thing collapses. And when an animal nibbles, the toggle slips, the lever drops, and the rock slams down. Quick, lethal, no struggle. This trap works because it's fast and efficient. No wasted effort, no suffering. It's perfect for survival. You can set multiple traps at once, saving time and energy. The materials are everywhere: sticks, string, and a rock. No need for metal, baited snares, or constant watching. Set it, move on, and come back to dinner. And last but not least, let's take a look at one more trap that pulls its victims skyward. Trap number 10, rolling snare. This one's also simple, but it has a deadly setup, like every other trap we talked about in this episode. No bait needed here either, just the animal's own movement to spring the trap. First, you find a strong, flexible sapling. This will be your spring pole, the muscle behind the snare. Bend it down and tie a noose to the end. Next, grab a forked branch, about an inch or two thick. Sharpen one end and drive it deep into the ground beside a well-worn game trail. This is your anchor. Now, get a smaller forked stick. This will be your trigger. The trick is in the balance. Hook the trigger stick onto the ground anchor, just loose enough to snap free when touched. Set the noose in the trail, propping it up with twigs or a thin thread. The moment a passing animal brushes against it, the trigger pops loose, the sapling whips up, and the snare tightens fast. The prey is yanked off the ground, struggling for a moment, then still. You just need to be patient, however. And with that said, let me share a few interesting tips when it comes to traps and snares. First of all, you should never forget that picking up a couple of sticks and turning them into a working snare is survival at its purest. With a sharp knife and the right know-how, you can craft a trap that works while you focus on staying alive. Improvisation in the wild is essential. After all, some of these traps have been used in war, built by soldiers in jungle combat to defend their camps. A few of these are deadly, as dangerous as a loaded gun. They're included here for one reason. If you're stranded in hostile country, they could save your life. But let's get one thing straight. These traps are not torture devices. They are far more humane than steel-jawed monstrosities that clamp down and leave animals to die in agony. Most of these snares catch their prey alive. Many who set them won't even kill the animal. They take a look, find it too interesting to destroy, and let it go. The real killers, however, are feral dogs, cats, and other scavengers wreaking havoc on local wildlife. So, in some way, these traps help restore balance. And if you're going to set a trap, follow two rules. 1. Never set a trap where it could harm someone without marking the area. And 2. Never leave a trap unattended. If something gets caught, deal with it. Don't let an animal starve. The traps in this episode are just a few of the countless variations you can build. The principles are simple, but the possibilities are endless. Remember what we said before. A flimsy trap is a useless trap. Take the time to build it right, strong enough to hold the animal once it's caught. The way you set your release matters. Some animals spook easily. You'll want a hair trigger. Others need to be lured, forced to work at the bait until they let their guard down. Knowing your prey means knowing how to set your trap. And the trap you choose depends on your target and your surroundings. Only experience will teach you which one will work best. And out of the countless traps used across the world, only a handful are reliable enough to trust in a life-or-death scenario. And from that elite group, even fewer are compact enough to carry with you. Those are the real game changers, the ones that fit in your pack, set up fast, and put food on the fire when nothing else will. And remember, out there in the wilderness, every mistake costs you.